Before microwaves and meal kits, there were casseroles. Quiet, dependable dishes built for people who had little time, little money, and no room for waste. For many seniors, these one-dish meals were not about comfort or trend. They were about getting through the day. A single pan, a handful of pantry staples, 10 minutes of work, and a hot meal was ready to stretch across dinner and tomorrow's lunch. These recipes came from church basements, handwritten notebooks, and kitchen tables worn smooth by decades of use. They fed widows, factory workers, and retirees living on fixed incomes. Nothing was fancy. Nothing was wasted. Every ingredient had a purpose. Today, these casseroles are nearly forgotten, replaced by packaged shortcuts and throwaway meals. But they still work. They still fill the stomach. And they still tell a quiet story about thrift, patience, and survival in American kitchens. In this video, we are bringing back 10 cheap, vintage, one-dish casseroles seniors could make in just 10 minutes. Meals that once meant the difference between going hungry and going to bed full. Tuna noodle casserole. Long before it became a punchline, tuna noodle casserole was a quiet necessity. In the years after World War II, many seniors learned to rely on shelf-stable food. Canned tuna, dried egg noodles, and condensed soup were inexpensive, predictable, and available year-round. For people living alone or on fixed incomes, this dish offered something rare: certainty. It did not spoil quickly. It did not require fresh meat. It did not ask for skill. The original versions were simple. Boiled noodles. A can of tuna, drained carefully to waste nothing. A scoop of cream soup for moisture and calories. Sometimes peas were added, sometimes not. The goal was never flavor in the modern sense. The goal was fullness. Protein from the fish. Energy from the noodles. Warmth from a hot oven. For seniors, this casserole made sense. It could be mixed in minutes and baked in a single dish. Leftovers reheated without falling apart. One pan could last 2 days. In small apartments and quiet kitchens, that mattered. Cooking had to be efficient. Food had to behave. This dish also carried familiarity. Many seniors had eaten it for decades. They knew its smell before it finished baking. They knew when it was done by the way the edges bubbled. That kind of knowledge reduced stress. There were no surprises. Even today, tuna noodle casserole remains practical. Everything can be kept in a cupboard. Preparation takes less than 10 minutes. Cleanup is minimal. It does not demand attention once it is in the oven. This casserole did not try to impress. It was never meant to. It existed to solve a problem: how to make a warm, filling meal from almost nothing. For seniors who learned to stretch every dollar, tuna noodle casserole was not outdated. It was reliable. And in hard kitchens, reliability mattered more than taste ever could. Chicken and rice casserole. Chicken and rice casserole was built for quiet endurance. It appeared in American kitchens long before convenience culture, when seniors learned to cook meals that could survive thin budgets and tired bodies. The ingredients were modest and familiar. Rice, a small portion of chicken, broth or condensed soup, and patience. Nothing more was required. For many older Americans, this dish came from earlier decades of life. It was cooked during the Depression, refined during wartime shortages, and carried into retirement years without change. Rice stretched meat further. Chicken bones were often boiled for broth first, then reused. Waste was not an option. Every step reflected restraint. The appeal was not excitement. It was balance. Rice provided steady energy. Chicken offered protein without heaviness. Everything cooked together slowly, absorbing flavor without needing attention. Seniors appreciated meals that did not demand standing for long periods. Once mixed, the casserole handled itself. This dish also respected routine. It baked evenly. It reheated cleanly. Portions could be measured without thinking. For people living alone, that predictability brought comfort. The kitchen felt manageable again. Preparation rarely exceeded 10 minutes. Rice was poured dry into the dish. Chicken was cut simply or left whole. Liquid was added, stirred once, and forgotten. The oven did the work. In later years, that mattered more than taste. Chicken and rice casserole was not festive food. It did not mark celebrations. It marked ordinary days. Days when energy was low and money was counted carefully. It filled plates without demanding effort. For seniors who learned to cook for survival rather than pleasure, chicken and rice casserole represented control. A single dish. A known outcome. A warm meal waiting at the end of the day. Quiet kitchens trusted it without question, year after year. Ground beef and potato casserole. Ground beef and potato casserole came from necessity, not creativity. It was shaped by years when meat was expensive and had to be stretched carefully. For seniors who lived through rationing, layoffs, or fixed incomes, ground beef was chosen because it could be divided, thinned, and still feel like a meal. Potatoes did the rest of the work. This dish appeared often in mid-century kitchens, especially in rural and working-class homes. Thin slices of potato were layered carefully to cover the pan. A small amount of browned ground beef was spread between them, seasoned lightly, never heavily. Milk, broth, or condensed soup was poured over everything to soften the potatoes as they baked. The goal was not richness. It was cohesion. Seniors valued this casserole for its logic. Potatoes were cheap, filling, and forgiving. Ground beef cooked quickly and could be measured precisely. A half-pound was often enough. Nothing had to be wasted. Even imperfect potatoes were used. Peels were sometimes left on. Preparation was fast. Browning the beef took minutes. The rest was assembly. One dish. One oven. Very little standing. For aging hands and tired backs, that simplicity mattered. The casserole could cook slowly while the kitchen stayed quiet. This meal also aged well. Leftovers firmed up overnight and sliced cleanly the next day. It reheated without losing structure. Seniors appreciated food that behaved predictably. Meals needed to last. Ground beef and potato casserole was not glamorous. It was practical. It filled the stomach and respected the cook's limits. In households where energy and money were carefully measured, this dish offered stability. A known process. A known result. A warm, steady meal built from two ingredients people trusted for a lifetime. Baked bean and sausage casserole. Baked bean and sausage casserole was born from thrift and timing. It relied on food that required no preparation and very little thought. Canned baked beans were already cooked. Sausage, often smoked or cured, lasted longer than fresh meat. For seniors, this combination removed uncertainty from the kitchen. This dish became common in the mid-20th century, especially in homes where cooking was done once and stretched over several days. The beans provided bulk and sweetness. The sausage supplied fat and flavor without needing large portions. Together, they created a filling meal using only a few items pulled straight from the pantry. Preparation was brief. The sausage was sliced. The beans were poured into a baking dish. Sometimes onions were added, sometimes not. Everything went into the oven together. No stirring. No constant checking. For seniors with limited energy, that mattered more than variety. This casserole was dependable. It heated evenly. It did not dry out. It could be eaten alone or with bread if available. Leftovers held their shape and improved slightly with time as flavors settled. That reliability reduced stress. Food was not meant to surprise. The dish also carried familiarity. Many seniors had eaten baked beans since childhood. They trusted them. Sausage was often reserved for meals that needed to feel substantial without cost. Together, they offered reassurance. Baked bean and sausage casserole did not belong to celebrations. It belonged to ordinary evenings when the goal was simple nourishment. In quiet kitchens, it solved a problem quickly. A single dish. Minimal effort. A warm, filling result that respected both the budget and the body of the person making it. Macaroni and tomato casserole. Macaroni and tomato casserole was one of the simplest meals many seniors ever learned to make. It came from a time when kitchens relied on shelf-stable basics and cooking was shaped by restraint. Dry macaroni and canned tomatoes were inexpensive, easy to store, and always available. When money was tight, this dish answered the problem without complaint. The origins of this casserole stretch back to the early 20th century, when pasta began appearing more regularly in American homes. Tomatoes, often canned at home or purchased cheaply, added moisture and acidity. Together, they created a filling meal with almost no cost. Meat was optional. Cheese was used sparingly or not at all. The dish was built to endure scarcity. For seniors, this casserole offered comfort through familiarity. Many had eaten versions of it during childhood, wartime, or early marriage. The process never changed. Boil the macaroni. Pour in the tomatoes. Season lightly. Combine everything in a single dish and bake. The oven did the rest. Preparation took only minutes. The ingredients were forgiving. Measurements did not need to be exact. If tomatoes were thin, the dish still worked. If macaroni was overcooked, it softened further without ruining the meal. That tolerance reduced anxiety in the kitchen, especially later in life. This casserole was also practical. It reheated well. Portions could be stretched over several meals. Bread could be added if available. Nothing required precision. Seniors appreciated food that did not demand attention or strength. Macaroni and tomato casserole was never about indulgence. It was about survival made gentle. It warmed the body, filled the stomach, and respected the limits of both budget and energy. In quiet homes, it remained a trusted solution long after flashier meals disappeared from the table. Creamed corn casserole. Creamed corn casserole was built around convenience long before convenience became a selling point. For seniors, canned corn was dependable. It did not spoil quickly, required no preparation, and cost very little. When combined into a single dish, it became a meal that asked almost nothing from the person making it. This casserole appeared often in mid-century kitchens, especially in households where strength and time were limited. Creamed corn already contained liquid and sweetness. Whole kernel corn added texture. A small amount of egg, milk, or flour helped everything set as it baked. Meat was rarely included. It was unnecessary. The dish was meant to be filling, not elaborate. Seniors valued this casserole for its simplicity. The ingredients were poured, not measured. Mixing took less than a minute. There was no chopping, no browning, and no standing at the stove. Once placed in the oven, it required no attention. That ease mattered in kitchens where energy had to be conserved. The flavor was mild and familiar. Corn had been a staple since childhood for many older Americans. Its sweetness carried comfort without effort. The texture was soft, making it easy to eat, especially for seniors with dental concerns. Every element of the dish felt considerate, even if unintentionally so. This casserole also reheated well. It held together cleanly and could be portioned without falling apart. Leftovers were dependable. That predictability reduced waste and planning. A single dish could cover multiple meals without adjustment. Creamed corn casserole was not designed to impress guests. It was designed to solve a quiet problem: how to make something warm, filling, and affordable with minimal movement and minimal cost. For seniors living alone or on fixed incomes, this dish represented calm, a familiar routine, a warm result, and a meal that respected both the body and the pantry without asking for more than 10 minutes of effort. Hot dog and potato casserole. Hot dog and potato casserole came from practicality, not preference. It appeared in kitchens where fresh meat was expensive and had to be replaced with something affordable and familiar. For many seniors, hot dogs were reliable. They were inexpensive, already cooked, and easy to portion. Potatoes completed the meal by adding weight and warmth. This dish became common in the 1940s and 1950s, especially in households raising children on limited income. Later, it followed those same cooks into old age. The method never changed. Potatoes were sliced thin to cook quickly. Hot dogs were cut into rounds to stretch their presence across the dish. A simple sauce, often milk or condensed soup, tied everything together. Seniors trusted this casserole because it required very little effort. There was no need to handle raw meat. Everything could be prepared sitting down. The ingredients were layered once, covered, and baked. 10 minutes of work was enough. The oven carried the rest of the responsibility. The flavor was familiar and non-demanding. Hot dogs carried salt and fat. Potatoes absorbed it. Nothing needed heavy seasoning. For older palates, that simplicity felt comfortable rather than dull. It was food that did not challenge or surprise. This casserole also solved another problem: predictability. It cooked evenly. It reheated without drying out. Leftovers stayed intact and could be portioned easily. Seniors living alone valued meals that behaved consistently and reduced decision-making. Hot dog and potato casserole was never meant to be admired. It existed to provide calories, warmth, and certainty. It used ingredients that were always available and affordable. In quiet kitchens, it offered reassurance. A single dish. Familiar smells. A filling meal that respected both the budget and the limited energy of the person preparing it. Cheesy vegetable casserole. Cheesy vegetable casserole was a quiet solution for seniors looking to stretch meals without spending much. In mid-century kitchens, frozen or canned vegetables were staples, offering convenience and longevity. Combined with a modest amount of cheese and sometimes breadcrumbs or a simple sauce, these casseroles provided both nutrition and comfort with minimal effort. This dish often appeared in households where budget and time were limited. Vegetables like green beans, carrots, or corn were common because they could be stored for months. Cheese, though not always abundant, added protein, fat, and flavor. The result was a creamy, cohesive dish that required little preparation and cooked reliably in a single pan. For seniors, this casserole was forgiving. Vegetables didn't need to be fresh or perfect. Slightly soft or misshapen pieces worked just as well. The preparation was straightforward. Layer vegetables, sprinkle cheese, pour a little milk or cream, and bake. 10 minutes of hands-on work could feed a person for multiple meals. It was also practical. The dish reheated well, maintained texture, and could be portioned easily. Seniors appreciated meals that behaved predictably and minimized waste. Cheesy vegetable casserole was not flashy, but it solved problems. It was affordable, filling, and required little strength to prepare. Ultimately, this casserole represented quiet ingenuity. It transformed simple pantry staples into a warm, comforting meal. For seniors, it was a reminder that nourishment didn't need to be complicated. One pan, a handful of ingredients, and a hot, satisfying dish waiting at the end of the day. Ham and potato casserole. Ham and potato casserole was a staple born from thrift and careful planning. For seniors who grew up in kitchens where nothing was wasted, leftover ham became the star of many meals. Coupled with inexpensive potatoes and a splash of milk or broth, it turned scraps into a full, satisfying dish. This casserole has roots in mid-20th century American homes, where Sunday roasts or holiday hams left small amounts of meat that needed stretching. Instead of letting it go to waste, families layered diced ham with thinly sliced potatoes, sometimes adding onions or a simple creamy sauce. The oven then did the work while the cook rested. Seniors favored this dish for its ease and reliability. Cutting ham and potatoes required little effort. Layering them in one pan minimized cleanup. Baking brought the flavors together without constant attention. 10 minutes of hands-on work could produce a meal that fed a person for multiple servings. The casserole was forgiving. Potatoes absorbed flavors, ham added salt and protein, and the sauce kept everything moist. Leftovers reheated well and could be portioned easily. For older cooks, this predictability was a blessing. Food that behaved and lasted mattered more than flair. Ham and potato casserole was not a showpiece. It was practical, nourishing, and comforting. It honored thrift, extended leftovers, and respected the cook's limited energy. In quiet kitchens, It provided warmth, sustenance, and reassurance that even modest ingredients could become a reliable, satisfying meal. Shepherd's pie casserole. Shepherd's pie casserole has long been a quiet favorite for seniors seeking a filling, one-dish meal. Rooted in British tradition but embraced in American homes, it relied on ingredients that were affordable, available, and forgiving. Ground meat, often beef or lamb, combined with a simple vegetable layer and topped with mashed potatoes, created a meal that could feed a family or last several days. For seniors, this casserole offered practicality. Ground meat could be browned quickly. Vegetables were usually frozen or canned, removing the need for lengthy prep. Mashed potatoes could be made from scratch or from instant packs. Once assembled in a single pan, the oven finished the dish with minimal effort. 10 minutes of hands-on work was often enough. This casserole was valued for predictability. It cooked evenly, held together when portioned, and reheated well. The flavors were comforting but mild, ideal for older palates. Its structure minimized stress. A clear layer of potatoes, meat, and vegetables made it easy to serve without mess or fuss. Shepherd's pie casserole was never about extravagance. It was about warmth, fullness, and efficiency. For seniors living alone or managing small budgets, it represented control in the kitchen, a reliable dish that required little energy but delivered a satisfying meal. In quiet homes, it became a trusted companion, carrying both nutrition and familiarity through everyday life.